The little girl stepped into the millionaire's grand office, holding a letter. One single sentence was about to change her life forever. Before the story begins, leave a comment and tell us where you're watching from. Enjoy the story. Golden. Sunlight streamed through the windows of Nathaniel Cooper's penthouse office as he ended a video call, one that had just earned him another billion. From 52 floors above Manhattan, the world looked small, manageable, and completely under his control. The contracts are signed, he informed his executive team. East Ridge Pharmaceuticals is now a part of Cooper Industries. As champagne glasses clinked around him, Nathaniel felt the same emptiness settle in, an all-too familiar hollowness that followed every major acquisition. Another triumph, the media would celebrate, but one that left nothing fulfilled within him. Suddenly, the intercom buzzed, breaking the moment. "Mr. Cooper, I apologize for the interruption," came the calm and composed voice of Vanessa Thompson. His executive assistant for 8 years, she had never disrupted an important meeting. "There's a child here to see you. A little girl. She says it's urgent." "A child?" Nathaniel frowned. "Whose child?" "She won't say, sir. Only that she needs to speak with you directly. She's quite determined." There was something in Vanessa's voice that stirred Nathaniel's curiosity. "Send her in." His executives shared confused looks as they stepped out, leaving Nathaniel alone in the room. The door opened again, and there she was, small, no older than 6. Her auburn hair was neatly braided, and her blue eyes, serious and striking, seemed eerily familiar. She held a worn-out teddy bear in one hand and a sealed envelope in the other. "Hello," Nathaniel said softly, lowering himself to her level. "What's your name?" "Isabel Peterson," she replied, her voice tiny but firm. "My mommy told me I had to give this to you myself." She handed over the envelope. "Before she went to heaven." Peterson. The name struck Nathaniel like a wave. Rebecca Peterson. His college love, the woman he had adored before his ambitions pulled them apart. With shaking fingers, he took the envelope. Inside was a letter and a photo, Rebecca holding a baby girl. "Nate, if you're reading this, it means I've lost my battle with leukemia. The doctors have given me only weeks, maybe days. This is Isabel. She's 6 years old now. She's your daughter. I never told you about her. That was my decision, my mistake. You were chasing your dreams, and I didn't want to be the one to stop you. I know I have no right to ask you for anything after all this time, but I have no one else. Please take care of our daughter. I've told her about you. She knows who her father is. Forgive me." Nathaniel lifted his gaze to the little girl, his daughter, who stood silently watching him with eyes so much like his own. "Your mommy? She's gone?" he asked gently. Isabel gave a small nod and hugged her teddy bear tighter. "Last week," she whispered. "You're my daddy, and you'll take care of me now." The world Nathaniel had built so meticulously began to shake beneath him as he struggled to find the right words. For the 3rd night in a row, he lay in bed, staring at the ceiling of his penthouse bedroom, unable to sleep. Down the hall, the spare bedroom now served as a temporary space for Isabel, placed under his care while the authorities verified the guardianship. In just 72 hours, his life had turned upside down. He had already hired top-tier private investigators to confirm Rebecca's story, though deep down, he knew it was true. Those eyes, his mother's eyes, gazed back at him from Isabel's delicate face. Rebecca. How long had it been now? 9 years since that whirlwind romance at Columbia University. He could still picture her in the campus library, surrounded by poetry books, her auburn hair falling across her face as she passionately argued about Keats and Shelley. You can't quantify everything with spreadsheets and profit margins. "Nate," she'd said during their final argument, "some things have more value than numbers." But he'd chosen a summer internship at Goldman Sachs over joining her at a writing retreat in Vermont. A single weekend decision that had unknowingly changed 3 lives forever. Swinging his legs off the bed, Nathaniel walked to the window. The city lights blurred in his vision as he thought back to yesterday's awkward dinner with Isabel. "Do you have any other kids?" she had asked, carefully cutting her chicken into tiny, precise squares. "No," he replied. "You're my only child." "Did you love my mommy?" That question caught him off guard and stuck in his throat. "Very much," he finally said. "We were young." His phone buzzed. Vanessa texting at 2:17 a.m. "DNA lab can rush results for a premium fee. Shall I proceed with the payment?" Vanessa had been impressively efficient through the crisis, yet something in her expression whenever Isabel was mentioned unsettled him. A tension around her eyes, a stiffness in her voice. "She can't stay here permanently," Vanessa had whispered when Isabel was out of earshot. "Your schedule doesn't suit having a child. Maybe a boarding school?" Nathaniel had silenced her with just a look. Whatever came next, he wouldn't leave his daughter in the hands of strangers, not after Rebecca had faced her illness alone. He tiptoed down the hallway and gently pushed open Isabel's door. She slept soundly, hugging her teddy bear, her tiny face serene under the dim glow of a nightlight he'd purchased in a hurry. Beside her bed sat a worn copy of The Little Prince, Rebecca's favorite. "I read it every night," Isabel had told him. "Mommy said the little prince had to leave his rose, but he always loved her." Quietly, Nathaniel closed the door and returned to his study. He opened his laptop, staring at spreadsheets that suddenly felt completely irrelevant compared to the little girl sleeping just feet away. He scrolled through old photos until he found one from college, him and Rebecca, laughing beside a campus fountain. Her eyes had sparkled with joy, full of life and hope. She had carried his child, raised her, without ever asking for a single thing. As the sun rose over Manhattan, Nathaniel made two promises. He would be part of Isabel's life, no matter what, and he would uncover why Rebecca had kept this truth hidden for so long. "The results are definitive, Mr. Cooper. You are Isabel's biological father." Nathaniel sat across from Dr. Martinez inside a private DNA testing facility. Though he had known in his heart from the moment he saw Isabel, hearing it confirmed scientifically gave the truth a different kind of weight. "Thank you, doctor," Nathaniel said, accepting the envelope containing the official report. Outside, his driver waited beside the Bentley. Nathaniel checked the time, still a bit left before his meeting with Rebecca's lawyer. He had instructed Vanessa to clear his entire afternoon, despite her sharp remark about the postponed quarterly. "Projections. Where to, sir?" asked Thomas as Nathaniel slid into the car. "Just drive. I need to think." As Manhattan passed by the tinted windows, he remembered Isabel's shy smile that morning when he'd attempted to make her pancakes. She had shown him how Rebecca always added cinnamon to the batter. His phone chimed. A message from Vanessa. "Board members are asking about your absence. What should I tell them?" Nathaniel ignored the message and put the phone on silent. The Cooper Industries board could wait. An hour later, he sat inside Michael Freridman's humble law office in Brooklyn. Filing cabinets and framed family photos filled the space, a sharp contrast to Nathaniel's cold corporate office. "Rebecca was incredibly brave," Freridman said, adjusting his glasses. "She was diagnosed with acute myeloid leukemia 18 months ago. The outlook was bleak from the beginning, but she fought with everything she had." "Why didn't she reach out to me?" Nathaniel asked, the question echoing in his mind for days. Freridman opened a folder. "She left this letter. She wanted you to read it only after the paternity was confirmed." Nathaniel unfolded the handwritten pages, Rebecca's familiar handwriting pulling him back in time. "Nate, I found out I was pregnant 2 weeks after you left for London. I almost called you, more times than I can count. But I saw the fire in your eyes when you talked about changing the world through business. A baby would have changed everything. It didn't seem fair to trap you, or make you choose. So I made the choice for both of us. Isabel is my greatest joy. I've never regretted having her. I only regret not telling you sooner. I've saved newspaper clippings about your success. I told Isabel that her daddy was out there changing the world just like he promised. I hope someday you can forgive me." Rebecca. Nathaniel folded the letter, his eyes wet. What happens to Isabel now? He asked, voice husky. Rebecca had no living relatives. Isabel is staying with a neighbor, Mrs. Chen, for now. Her will names you as legal guardian, but you do have options. I'm taking her, Nathaniel interrupted. She's my daughter. That evening, as he gently explained to Isabel that she would be moving in with him for good, her expression remained quiet and still. Can I bring Mommy's books? She asked softly. Of course, Nathaniel replied. Whatever you want. Vanessa doesn't like me, Isabel said suddenly, her voice small but certain. Her eyes were far too observant for her age. Nathaniel stiffened. Why do you think that? She looks at me like I'm a problem to solve, Isabel said simply. Mom taught me to watch how people look at things they don't want. Out of the mouths of babes, Nathaniel thought, realizing just how much his daughter truly noticed. Later, Nathaniel sat parked outside Mrs. Chen's modest Brooklyn apartment. Through the window, he saw Isabel at the kitchen table, coloring, carefully, her tongue poking out in focus. This was his third unannounced visit that week, watching his daughter from afar, working up the courage to step inside. Sir, should I let her know we've arrived? Thomas asked. Not yet. Give me 5 more minutes. Inside Nathaniel's briefcase were 3 parenting books, each filled with sticky notes and underlined advice. Between meetings, he'd spoken with child psychologists, researched schools, pediatricians, and kid-friendly spots across Manhattan. He saw Mrs. Chen place a glass of milk beside Isabel. Her warmth had bought him time, but he knew the arrangement couldn't last forever. Finally, he nodded at Thomas and walked toward the building. You brought books, Isabel exclaimed when he entered, spotting the stack of children's stories poking out of his bag. I thought we could read together, Nathaniel said, awkwardly sitting on the small sofa as Mrs. Chen quietly gave them space. Mom always used different voices for each character, Isabel said, picking out a book about a lost rabbit. For the next hour, Nathaniel read aloud, doing his best impressions, which made Isabel giggle despite herself. He learned that she loved strawberries, hated bananas, preferred purple over pink, and had named her teddy bear Professor because he looked smart. Meanwhile, across town, Vanessa Thompson sat in the executive dining hall of Cooper Industries with CFO James Harrington. Nathaniel missed today's investor call, she said casually. Third one this week. He's really distracted with this whole family matter, Harrington replied, frowning. The Parker merger might be at risk. It's concerning, Vanessa said, sipping her coffee. But I'm managing things until he finds his focus again. As she spoke, Vanessa deleted a calendar alert for Nathaniel's strategic planning session, replacing it with Isabel, school tour. I hope this situation settles soon, Harrington muttered. The board won't tolerate delays. Can only hope, Vanessa replied smoothly, her worried expression hiding something far more calculated. This is a big day for both of you, said Ms. Winters, the social worker, as she accompanied Isabel into Nathaniel's penthouse. Remember, transitions take time. Isabel held on tightly to Professor Bear, her small suitcase rolling behind her. She wore a blue dress covered in tiny butterflies, one that Rebecca had kept for special days. Welcome home, Isabel, Nathaniel said, instantly regretting the formal tone. It sounded more like a business greeting than a father speaking to his daughter. Ms. Winters reviewed the final documents while Isabel stood silently in the expansive living room, her eyes slowly scanning the 20-foot ceilings and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Manhattan. It's really high up here, she finally said. Yes, we're quite high, Nathaniel replied, relieved to hear her say something. Once Ms. Winters departed with a promise to follow up soon, father and daughter stood awkwardly across from each other in the quiet space. Are you hungry? Nathaniel asked. Isabel shook her head. Thirsty? Another silent shake. Would you like to see the rest of the apartment? She gave a small nod. Nathaniel guided her through rooms built to impress more than comfort. The pristine, barely used kitchen, the dining room that could seat 16, the private theater lined with leather recliners. Where do you eat breakfast? Isabel asked, her tiny voice echoing in the massive room. "Usually at my desk," Nathaniel admitted. "Or sometimes not at all." Isabel looked surprised. "Mom says breakfast is the most important meal. We always had pancakes on Sundays." "We could have pancakes on Sundays too," Nathaniel quickly offered. When they arrived at the guest bedroom he'd prepared, Isabel gently set Professor Bear on the oversized king bed that made her look even smaller. "Is this my room now?" she asked. "Yes, if you like it. We can change it however you want." She unzipped her suitcase and carefully pulled out a framed picture of Rebecca, placing it on the nightstand. "Mom said I should put her picture by my bed so she can still say goodnight." Nathaniel felt his throat tighten. That's the perfect place for it. Later that night, as he tucked her in, something that involved negotiating the lights, the number of bedtime stories, and how far open the door should stay, Nathaniel realized how unprepared his sleek apartment was for a child. No nightlight, no stool for the bathroom sink, no playful colors or soft toys. "Is that lady your girlfriend?" Isabel asked out. "Of the blue, what lady?" "The one with the angry eyes." "Vanessa?" Nathaniel laughed softly. "No, she's my assistant. She helps me with work. She doesn't like kids," Isabel said plainly. As Nathaniel dimmed the light and left the door ajar just as she requested, he wondered how much else his daughter had already noticed that he hadn't. By the third week, they had settled into a fragile routine. Morning started with Nathaniel attempting breakfast while Isabel sat on a kitchen stool, legs swinging as she explained the politics of first grade. "Emily S. isn't talking to Emily T. because Emily T. said unicorns aren't real," she said. "Seriously?" Arranging blueberries into a smiley face on her oatmeal. "A full-blown diplomatic crisis," Nathaniel replied, earning a rare giggle. He'd enrolled her at the prestigious Wesley Academy, hired a driver to take her to and from school, and even reshuffled his schedule to attend her first parent-teacher meeting. Mrs. Harrison, Isabel's teacher, had looked pleasantly surprised to meet the legendary Nathaniel Cooper in person. "Isabel has a remarkable talent for math," she said. "Well beyond her age level." "That's unexpected," Nathaniel replied, though he had excelled in math himself. Now, as Isabel practiced ballet in the living room using the back of an Italian leather sofa as a ballet bar, Nathaniel noticed how her brow furrowed in concentration, exactly like his during tense negotiations. "Mom said I get my serious face from you," Isabel said, noticing his gaze. "She said you could think harder than anyone she'd ever known." "Your mother was the smartest person I've ever met," Nathaniel said softly. "She could recite whole poems by heart." Isabel nodded thoughtfully. "She read me poetry when she was sick. The medicine made her tired, but she still read every night. She tried to hold an arabesque, wobbling slightly. Mom came to every recital, even when she needed her oxygen tank." Nathaniel's chest tightened. "I'd love to watch you dance sometime. I have a recital next Thursday," Isabel said hesitantly. "If you're not too busy." "I'll be there," Nathaniel said without hesitation. That night, after putting Isabel to bed, Nathaniel opened his laptop only to find several alarming emails. The Parker merger presentation had been rescheduled without his approval. 2 major investors had requested urgent meetings over some troubling matters. A message from his CFO read, "Board members are questioning your priorities. Vanessa says, you're skipping key meetings for school events?" Nathaniel scrolled through his calendar. Important appointments had been moved or even erased. None of the changes had his approval. Suddenly, from Isabel's room, he heard soft crying. Closing his laptop, the corporate crisis faded in importance as he quietly made his way down the hall. He found Isabel holding her mother's photo, tears sliding down her cheeks. "I miss her," she whispered. Nathaniel sat down beside her on the bed. "I miss her too." For the first time, he simply held his daughter as she cried, everything else forgotten. "I want to show you something," Isabel said one evening after dinner, her voice more serious than usual. Nathaniel looked up from his tablet where he had been reviewing quarterly reports. "What is it?" Isabel returned from her room carrying a wooden box decorated with hand-painted stars. She placed it gently on the coffee table. Mom made this for me when she started getting really sick. She called it my forever box. Nathaniel set his work aside. May I look inside? Isabel nodded. Inside were neatly arranged treasures, seashells from beach trips, theater ticket stubs, crayon drawings, and a bundle of sealed envelopes. These are for when I'm older, Isabel explained, pointing to the labels. 16th birthday, first day of high school, wedding day. Mom wrote me letters for all the days she knew she'd miss. Nathaniel's throat tightened as she pulled out a small photo album. This is us, she said, flipping through pages filled with snapshots of Rebecca and Isabel, birthday cakes, Halloween costumes, first day of school moments. In the later photos, Rebecca's illness was evident. Her features had faded, but her smile always brightened when looking at her daughter. You have her smile, Nathaniel said quietly. And I have your eyes, Isabel replied. Mom always said so. She reached into the box once more and took out a yellowed envelope addressed simply to Nathaniel. Mom said if we ever found you, I should give you this too. Hands slightly shaking, Nathaniel opened the letter, dated 7 years earlier. Nate, I'm watching our daughter sleep. She just turned 1, and she already has your willpower. When she sets her mind to something, like grabbing a toy, nothing stops her. I almost called you today. I got all the way to your company's switchboard before hanging up. You're making headlines, changing the world with your innovations. A child would have pulled your focus. Maybe it was selfish to keep her all to myself. But when I see what you're building, I feel I made the right choice. I don't regret a single day with her. I only hope someday you'll understand. I loved you enough to let you go. Rebecca Nathaniel looked up and saw Isabel watching him closely. Did that make you sad? She asked gently. Yes, he replied, but the kind of sad that matters. Mom said she was protecting both of us, Isabel added, pulling out a folder filled with newspaper clippings. She saved all your articles, she said proudly. She said you were building something important. That night, Nathaniel stared at his laptop. The billion-dollar acquisition he had chased for months now felt empty in comparison to the moments he had already lost with his daughter, moments he could never reclaim. Outside Wesley Academy's auditorium, Nathaniel adjusted his tie nervously. For someone who regularly addressed high-stakes boardrooms, he felt unexpectedly anxious among parents carrying flower bouquets and cameras. Mr. Cooper, said Mrs. Harrison, walking up with surprise. We weren't expecting you. Your assistant called to say you had an emergency board meeting. Nathaniel frowned. There's no board meeting. I specifically cleared my schedule. Inside, he found himself wedged between a father in a firefighter's uniform and a mother who introduced herself as Emma's mom before launching into ballet. Small talk. Nathaniel couldn't follow first recital, the firefighter asked. Noticing Nathaniel's discomfort isn't that obvious. We've all been there. I'm Brian Katie's dad, divorced weekend warrior, Nathaniel Isabel's father. The word still felt new on his tongue. Isabel's great helps Katie with her math homework. Brian said Rebecca raised a wonderful kid. The lights dimmed. Before Nathaniel could respond, saving him from explaining his sudden appearance in Isabel's life, the first graders emerged in pale pink tutus. Some giggling, others solemn with concentration. Nathaniel spotted Isabel immediately, her posture perfect. Her expression determined, unlike some children who waved at parents or forgot steps. Isabel performed with quiet precision. Something unexpected swelled in Nathaniel's chest as he watched his daughter dance, a fierce pride entirely different from closing successful deals or seeing his company's stock price climb. When the performance ended, Nathaniel stood with the other parents applauding until his hands hurt. Backstage, children reunited with parents amid congratulations and flowers. Isabel emerged, scanning the crowd anxiously until she spotted him. Her face transformed with surprise and joy as she ran toward him. You came, she exclaimed. You really came. Of course, Nathaniel said, kneeling to her level. I promised, didn't I? For the first time, Isabel threw her arms around his neck in a spontaneous hug over her shoulder. Nathaniel noticed a familiar figure at the auditorium entrance, Vanessa. Her expression tightening when she saw them. Your ballet shoes are getting worn, he told Isabel deliberately, turning away from his assistant. Perhaps we should shop for new ones this weekend, pink ones with ribbons, Isabel asked, eyes widening. Any kind you want, Nathaniel promised, realizing he would gladly trade any business victory for the smile, currently illuminating his daughter's Carson. As they left hand in hand, he glimpsed Vanessa watching them, her phone raised as if taking photos. Something in her expression made him pull Isabel closer protectively. Can we get ice cream? Isabel asked, oblivious to the tension. Absolutely, Nathaniel replied, making another easy promise he fully intended to keep. Sunday morning found Nathaniel in his rarely used kitchen floor, dusting his Harvard Business School t-shirt as he consulted a pancake recipe on his tablet. Not like that, Isabel said, climbing onto a stool. Mom always added vanilla and cinnamon. Show me, Nathaniel offered, stepping aside with serious concentration. Isabel measured ingredients with the precision of a chemist. Sunday pancakes were our special thing. She explained, even in the hospital, Mom would sneak in pancakes when the nurses weren't looking. Their first attempt burned, the second stuck to the pan. By the third they'd produced something edible which they ate at the dining table. Nathaniel had previously used only for contract negotiations. We need a proper tradition calendar, Isabel declared. Afterward, retrieving a notebook, Mom kept one together. They created a schedule: Sunday pancakes, Tuesday movie nights, Saturday park excursions. Nathaniel added stargazing after discovering Isabel's fascination with constellations. Mom and I used to look at stars from our apartment roof, she explained. She said, when people leave us, they become stars so they can always watch over us. That evening, Nathaniel surprised Isabel by transforming the penthouse terrace with pillows and blankets as Manhattans. Lights glowed below, he pointed out, constellations using a stargazing app. That bright one is Polaris, he explained. The North Star sailors used it to find their way home like a forever light. Isabel murmured, Do you think Mom can see us? Nathaniel's throat tightened. I think she can. Isabel leaned against his shoulder, used to have hot chocolate on stargazing nights. We can do that too, Nathaniel said, making a mental note to stock hot chocolate supplies as Isabel drifted to sleep that night. Nathaniel checked his emails to find several alarming messages. A major investor had withdrawn support, citing concerning rumors about leadership. Distraction: his quarterly presentation had been rescheduled to conflict with Isabel's parent-teacher conference. More disturbing was an email thread that had accidentally included him, where Vanessa wrote to board member Harrison, and has completely lost focus since this child appeared. I'm managing damage control, but the timing couldn't be worse with the Sullivan acquisition pending. Nathaniel closed his laptop, unsettled. His company, the empire he'd built from nothing, apparently faced threats he hadn't even recognized, orchestrated by someone he'd trusted implicitly for years. Yet as he checked on his sleeping daughter, her small hand curled around Professor Bear, he found himself prioritizing their new tradition, calendar over corporate machinations. For the first time in his career, ice skating. Isabel echoed, eyes wide with uncertainty. But I don't know how they stood in Nathaniel's home office, where he'd been showing her pictures of Rockefeller Center's famous ice rink, now decorated for the holiday season. Neither do I, Nathaniel admitted. Not really. I tried once in college, but I spent more time falling than skating. Then why should we go? Isabel asked, practical as always. Nathaniel knelt to her level. Because sometimes it's fun to learn something new together, something that's just ours. The truth was, he'd been seeking an activity that wouldn't be shadowed by memories of Rebecca, something he and Isabel could discover as their own tradition. Will it hurt if I fall? She asked. Probably a little, Nathaniel answered honestly. But I'll be right there falling with you. This earned him a small smile. Okay, but I get hot chocolate after deal. Saturday morning found the mat. A private session Nathaniel had arranged at the Rockefeller rink. Rather than sharing the ice with tourists, they had the entire space to themselves, along with a patient instructor named Marcoth. Secret is to not be afraid of falling, Marco advised, helping Isabel lace her white skates. Everyone falls at first, even Olympic champions. Nathaniel, already wobbly on his rented skates, wasn't reassured. The ice looked considerably harder than he remembered. Their first steps onto the slick surface were predictably disastrous. Isabel clung to the rail while Nathaniel attempted to demonstrate confidence he didn't feel within minutes. Both Cooper knees had made intimate acquaintance with the ice. "I think I'm terrible at this," Isabel announced after her third fall, her pink cheeks flushed with cold and exertion. "I'm definitely worse," Nathaniel countered, helping her up while nearly toppling himself. Their shared ineptitude broke something between them, a remaining formality that had lingered despite weeks of living together by the hours. Midpoint, they were laughing at each other's awkward movements, their competitive streaks emerging as they raced very slowly from one end of the rink to the other. "Watch me," Isabel called, attempting a small twirl that ended with her sitting abruptly on the ice. Instead of crying, she giggled. "Your turn." Nathaniel's subsequent demonstration earned him applause from both Isabel and Marco for the most creative fall of the day. By session's end, they could complete a lap without clinging to the rail, a modest achievement that felt monumental. Rosy-cheeked and exhausted, they celebrated with the promised hot chocolate at a nearby cafe. "Can we come back next week?" Isabel asked, marshmallow foam dotting her upper lip. "I want to learn to go backward." "Absolutely," Nathaniel agreed, realizing he'd gladly endure weekly bruises for more mornings like this one. Meanwhile, across town, Vanessa Thompson sat in Cooper Industries' empty boardroom with Harold Sullivan, whose medical technology company represented Nathaniel's most ambitious acquisition target. "I appreciate your candor," Sullivan said, frowning at the spreadsheets before him. "Cooper's distracted leadership concerns me. These attendance records, missed meetings, Nathaniel's personal situation has become complicated," Vanessa replied carefully. "His priorities have shifted dramatically. Since this child appeared," she slid across a tablet showing photographs taken at the ballet recital. "And now from that morning, Nathaniel and Isabel at the skating rink. The board is monitoring the situation," she continued. "But I felt you deserve transparency." Before proceeding with the merger, Sullivan nodded gravely. "Perhaps we should postpone discussions until Cooper gets his house in order." A wise precaution. Vanessa agreed, hiding her satisfaction as another piece of her campaign fell into place. Back at the penthouse that evening, Nathaniel winced as he applied ice to his bruised knee. His phone buzzed with urgent messages about Sullivan's sudden hesitation, but he silenced it when Isabel appeared in her pajamas carrying the Little Prince. "Can we read an extra chapter tonight?" she asked, since we're both sore from skating. "Good thinking." Nathaniel agreed, setting his phone aside as his daughter curled beside him on the sofa, their aching muscles forgotten in the comfort of their growing bond. Nathaniel stared at the small velvet box in his palm. Inside nestled a delicate gold heart pendant on a fine chain. Simple enough for a 7-year-old, but elegant enough to keep forever. He'd spent weeks considering the perfect gift for Isabel's birthday, consulting child psychologist and even Brian the firefighter from ballet class. "The locket is perfect, sir," affirmed the jeweler who had opened his Fifth Avenue store early for this private appointment, "and the engraving is complete as requested." Nathaniel opened the pendant, checking the inscription one final time. "Always in my heart" on one side, with space for photos on both halves. "It's exactly right," he confirmed, thinking of the miniature photos he'd prepared. Rebecca on one side, and a picture of him and Isabel skating on the other later. That afternoon, Nathaniel transformed the penthouse with purple decorations, Isabel's current favorite color, and a cake shaped like a stack of books. He'd invited her entire class, but Isabel had requested only 2 friends, Katie from ballet and Maya from math club. "Small celebrations were our tradition with Mom," she'd explained when he'd offered a grander party as Nathaniel arranged presents on the dining table. His phone buzzed insistently. The Sullivan deal was officially on hold with investors demanding an emergency meeting. More concerning were the messages from board members asking about verification of paternity claims and potential inheritance fraud. The doorbell interrupted his troubled thoughts. Isabel answered it, wearing the new purple dress they'd selected together, her hair braided with ribbons. "You look beautiful," he told her sincerely. The modest celebration was unlike any event previously held in his penthouse. Children's laughter, replacing business discussions, games instead of negotiations. Nathaniel found himself on the floor playing Jenga, with more concentration than he devoted to million-dollar contracts. When the cake arrived, chocolate with buttercream frosting, Rebecca's recipe that Mrs. Chen had shared, Isabel closed her eyes tightly before blowing out her candles. "What did you wish for?" Katie asked. "Can't tell her it won't come true?" Isabel replied solemnly as presents were opened books from friends' ballet slippers from Mrs. Chen. Nathaniel waited, nervously, with his small velvet box when finally he handed it to her. Isabel opened it carefully, her eyes widening at the gold heart. "It's a locket," Nathaniel explained, showing her how it opened. "This is your mother," he said, pointing to Rebecca's photo, "and this is us." Isabel traced the engraving with her finger, then looked at the skating photo. "Our first special thing together," she whispered. "I thought you might like having both of us close to your heart." Nathaniel said, his voice rough with emotion. Isabel clutched the pendant tightly. "Can you put it on me?" With trembling fingers, Nathaniel fastened the delicate chain around her neck. Isabel touched the heart where it rested against her chest, then threw her arms around him in a fierce hug. "Thank you, Dad," she whispered against his shoulder. Nathaniel froze, overwhelmed by the simple word he'd never expected to hear directed at him before he could respond. Isabel had already rejoined her friends, the golden heart gleaming against her purple dress. That evening, after guests departed and Isabel fell asleep still wearing her locket, Nathaniel discovered an email draft Vanessa had accidentally saved. Rather than sent, it outlined concerns about the Cooper child situation for board members, suggesting discreet investigation into whether the girl is truly his or an elaborate inheritance scheme. Anger, unlike anything he'd felt in business battles, rose within him. Someone was targeting his daughter, the one person who had finally shown him what truly mattered. He closed his laptop with new resolve. Tomorrow would bring a reckoning at Cooper Industries, but tonight the word Dad echoed in his mind, more valuable than any title he'd ever held. "What's this plant called?" Isabel asked, gently touching the broad leaf of a potted fiddle fig in Nathaniel's office corner. She'd been quietly coloring at his desk while he finished, an urgent call, to be honest. "I'm not sure," Nathaniel admitted. "The interior designer chose them. I just pay someone to keep them alive." Isabel looked scandalized. "Plants need names, and you should talk to them. You talk to plants." She nodded solemnly. "Mom said plants grow better when you're nice to them. Our apartment was too small for a garden, but we had a windowsill full of herbs. I named them all after ballet positions." Nathaniel watched his daughter stroke the plant leaf thoughtfully. In 7 years, he'd never noticed the plants in his own office. Isabel had been here 3 months and already saw things he'd overlooked. "I've been thinking," he said, closing his laptop. "The penthouse has a large terrace that gets excellent sunlight. What if we created a garden there, something we could build together?" Isabel's eyes widened. "A real garden with flowers and vegetables. Whatever you want, we could design it together." The next hour vanished as they sketched plans at his drafting table, Isabel insisting on separate sections for flowers, vegetables, and experimental plants. Her methodical approach reminded Nathaniel of himself, planning acquisitions, though her enthusiasm far exceeded his boardroom demeanor. "We'll need proper soil," she explained with authority, "and a watering system for when we're not home." As they worked, Nathaniel found himself saying, "Actually, I've been considering something else too. This penthouse is perfect for business, but perhaps not ideal for a family. What would you think about a house, something with a yard where we could have a proper garden?" Isabel's crayon paused. "Mid-stroke, a house like with stairs inside." "Exactly, and rooms for your friends to visit, maybe even a dog someday." She studied him with sudden intensity. "Would that be permanent?" "What do you mean?" Isabel fidgeted with her locket. "Would I stay with you? Forever?" The question struck Nathaniel like physical pain despite months of building their life together. Isabel still harbored uncertainty about her place in his world. He knelt beside her chair. "Isabel, look at me. You are my daughter. Nothing will ever change that. Not my work. Not this apartment. Nothing. Wherever I am is your home, always here." Yes, searched his face. "What if you get tired of having a kid? Mom said your work was really important. My work was important because I didn't know what I was missing." Nathaniel said the truth of it, resonating as he spoke, "But nothing, no deal. No company, nothing is more important than you." Isabel's smile bloomed slowly. "So I could have a purple room in the new house too. Absolutely, with stars on the ceiling if you want. And we'll build the garden together. Promise." "I promise." Later that evening, Nathaniel received an urgent message from his CFO emergency board meeting. Called for tomorrow, allegations of company resources diverted for personal use. VHA's presented documentation of concerning prioritization issues. Need to talk. ASAP looking at Isabel curling up with a book about gardening. Nathaniel made his decision for too long. Cooper Industry had been his identity, his purpose now. It was simply his job, and if necessary, a job he could fight for, or even walk away from. He texted his reply, "I'll be there, and tell the board to prepare for some significant changes in leadership, Dad." Isabel called from the sofa, "Can we get sunflowers?" They always turn to face the light. "Definitely, sunflowers," Nathaniel agreed, joining her with their garden sketch corporate battles temporarily forgotten in favor of planning something that would grow alongside their future together. "Keep your eyes closed," Nathaniel instructed, guiding Isabel down the hallway with his hands gently covering her eyes. "No peeking." "Are we there yet?" she asked, her excitement palpable as she shuffled forward in her ballet slippers. For 3 weeks, the east wing of the penthouse had been sealed off with plastic sheeting while contractors worked behind closed doors. Isabel had peppered him with questions, but Nathaniel had maintained the surprise despite her increasingly creative interrogation tactics. Almost there, he promised, positioning her in the doorway. "Ready 321. He removed his hands. Isabel gasped. The former guest bedroom had been transformed into a child's paradise. Soft purple walls provided background for hand-painted constellations that stretched across the ceiling when Nathaniel dimmed the lights with a remote control. Tiny fiber optic stars illuminated, casting a gentle glow throughout the room. A canopy bed with twinkling lights woven through gauzy fabric dominated one wall. Bookshelves filled with favorite titles lined another. A ballet bar with a full-length mirror occupied a corner, beside a cozy window seat overlooking the city. "The stars move," Nathaniel explained, as Isabel stood speechless. "The system is programmed to show the actual night sky as it changes through seasons." But Isabel had already spotted the alcove that had once been a small closet. Now it housed a glass-fronted cabinet containing familiar treasures. Rebecca's favorite books, her silk scarves, framed photographs of mother and daughter together. Beside it stood a small writing desk where Rebecca's wooden memory box rested. "This is a special place for your mom," Nathaniel said quietly. "So she's always part of your room." Isabel ran her fingers over the cabinet, then turned to inspect everything else. The star projector beside her bed, the custom bookcase with adjustable shelves, the purple rug depicting the solar system. "You remembered everything?" she whispered, turning in a circle. "It's exactly how I imagined it." "There's one more thing," Nathaniel said, pulling a star-shaped remote from his pocket. "Press this." When Isabel pushed the button, tiny ballet dancers projected across one wall, pirouetting among the stars to gentle music for when you miss dancing. He explained. "Dad," she breathed the word still new enough to catch in his chest, "it's magic." Later that night, after Isabel had fallen asleep beneath her constellation ceiling, Nathaniel sat in his office reviewing emails. His meeting with the board had been postponed while he gathered evidence of exactly what had been happening in his absence. What he found made his blood run cold. Emails between Vanessa and key investors, suggesting Isabel might be an imposter, calendar manipulations, ensuring he missed critical meetings, documents with his digital signature that he'd never seen, authorizing problematic decisions. Most damning was an email to Harold Sullivan. "I've worked alongside Nathaniel for 8 years. This child has destroyed his focus and judgment. The paternity claim seems suspicious at best. No proof beyond a convenient letter from a deceased woman. The board is exploring options to protect the company from this unfortunate distraction." Nathaniel leaned back, oddly calm, despite the betrayal 6 months ago. Such sabotage would have ignited immediate rage and retaliation. Now his first thought was protecting Isabel from the ugliness Vanessa had tried to create. He closed his laptop and walked to Isabel's new room quietly. Opening the door, she slept peacefully, her small hand curled around her locket, starlight playing across her features in the soft glow. Her resemblance to both Rebecca and himself seemed undeniable. Tomorrow would bring confrontation and consequences at Cooper Industries, but tonight, watching his daughter sleep beneath the stars he'd built for her, Nathaniel knew with certainty that he'd already won what truly mattered. The autumn morning dawned clear and crisp, As Nathaniel guided his car through the row iron gates of Pinewood Cemetery beside him, Isabel sat quietly, her hands folded over a small bouquet of white lies. "Are you sure you're ready for this?" Nathaniel asked gently. It was the 1-year anniversary of Rebecca's passing. Isabel nodded her fingers, absently touching the heart locket that rarely left her neck. "Mom would want us to come together. The past week had been tumultuous at Cooper Industries." Nathaniel had confronted Vanessa with evidence of her manipulation resulting in her immediate termination and a company-wide investigation. The board, initially shocked by the extent of her deception, had rallied behind Nathaniel after reviewing the falsified documents and unauthorized communications. "You've proven your priorities are in perfect order," Chairman Westfield had told him. Family first, but the company never suffered for it now as they followed the winding path through meticulously maintained gardens. Corporate battles seemed distant and insignificant. "It's over here," Isabel directed, leading him toward a quiet corner beneath a maple tree already turning golden with the season. Rebecca's headstone was elegant black granite, engraved with a simple epitaph. "Rebecca Marie Peterson, beloved mother-daughter teacher friend. The stars are my home now." Nathaniel felt his chest tighten as they approached. He'd never visited before, had never said a proper goodbye to the woman who'd shared his life so briefly, yet had given him his greatest gift. Isabel knelt to arrange the lilies in the stone vase, then traced her mother's name with her fingertips. "Hi, Mom," she said softly. "I brought Dad this time, just like you said I would someday." Nathaniel knelt beside his daughter, placing his hand on the cool stone. Memories flooded back. Rebecca laughing in the university library, her passion when discussing literature, the gentle strength that had allowed her to raise their daughter alone while battling illness. "There are fresh flowers here already," Isabel observed, touching a bouquet of colorful wildflowers. "Your mother touched many lives," Nathaniel said. "Her students, colleagues, friends. She kept all your letters from college," Isabel said, unexpectedly, in a special blue box under her bed. "She let me read them once when she was really sick." Nathaniel looked at her in surprise. "She kept my letters," Isabel nodded. She said, "They reminded her that love comes in different forms. Some love stays forever, like her love for me, and some love changes into something different, but it's still important." Nathaniel felt tears prick his eyes at Rebecca's wisdom, at her ability to explain complex emotions in ways a child could understand. "Your mother was extraordinary," he said hilariously. "She said you were too. She told me how you wanted to create things that would help people, not just make money. She said, that's why I'm good at math and science, because you always wanted to solve problems." For several minutes, they sat together in comfortable silence, the autumn breeze rustling through the maple leaves above them. "I wish I'd known," Nathaniel finally said, "about you, about her illness. I would have. Mom knew you would have come." Isabel interrupted with certainty. "That's why she waited so long to tell you. She said you would have given up everything you built, and then you might have been sad later." "She was probably right," Nathaniel admitted. "Your mother understood people in ways I'm only beginning to learn." "She wasn't always right, though," Isabel said thoughtfully. "She thought maybe you wouldn't want a daughter." Nathaniel turned to face her fully. "She couldn't have been more wrong about that." Isabel leaned against his shoulder. "I know that now." From her small backpacks, he withdrew a sealed envelope and placed it beside the flowers. "I wrote her a letter about our garden plans in Meister room and ice skating, about everything that's happened." Nathaniel recognized this ritual from Rebecca's memory box, the continuing conversation with someone beloved but absent. He reached into his jacket and removed his own envelope. "I wrote one too," he confessed. Isabel's eyes widened. "What did you tell her? That I'm sorry for the time I missed with both of you, that I'm grateful she raised such an amazing daughter, that I promised to keep her memory alive for you." He paused, then added quietly, "And that I'm finally learning what truly matters, just as she always tried to teach me." Isabel slipped her hand into his. "I think she knows." As they walked back to the car hand in hand, Isabel pointed upward, where a single star remained visible in the morning sky. "Mom said the morning star guides people home," she explained. "Do you think we found our home, Dad, together?" Nathaniel looked at this daughter, this miraculous blend of Rebecca's compassion and his determination. This child who had shattered his carefully constructed world, only to rebuild it with purpose and meaning he'd never imagined possible. Yes, he answered, his voice certain, despite the emotion tightening his throat. I believe we have in the car. His phone lit up with messages about the Sullivan acquisition. Suddenly back on track, the business empire he'd built still needed his attention. But as he started the engine with Isabel buckling her seatbelt beside him, Nathaniel knew without doubt where his true priorities would always remain. The Cooper Industries boardroom fell silent as Nathaniel concluded his presentation. The morning sunlight streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows, illuminating the faces of executives who had never seen their CEO quite like this before. In summary, he said, closing the portfolio containing reorganization plans, I'm not stepping down as CEO, but I am restructuring leadership to accommodate my priorities. The Sullivan acquisition will proceed with the team I've outlined, while I'll focus on our sustainability initiatives and overall strategy. Harold Sullivan, seated near the head of the table, nodded approvingly. I must say, Cooper, when your former assistant approached me with concerns about your distraction, I had reservations, but seeing your performance these past weeks, managing this crisis while maintaining your personal commitments, I'm convinced our companies belong together. Thank you, Harold, Nathaniel replied. Vanessa Thompson's actions were unfortunate, but they forced me to evaluate what matters both personally and professionally. Board Chairman Westfield cleared his throat. The investigation into Ms. Thompson's activities is ongoing. Early findings suggest her manipulations began shortly after Isabel's arrival. She appears to have been emotionally invested in your previous lifestyle. The authorities have what they need, Nathaniel said firmly. I'd prefer we focus on moving forward. As the meeting concluded with handshakes and renewed confidence, Nathaniel found himself unexpectedly at peace. 6 months ago, his identity had been inseparable from Cooper Industries. Now, it was simply part of who he was, no longer the defining element outside his driver. Weighted with news that the real estate agent had called the brownstone and park slope with the garden space was officially there's another piece falling into place for their new life. Take me to Wesley Academy. Thomas Nathaniel directed its career day in Isabel's classroom. Parents representing various professions sat awkwardly in child-sized chairs. A firefighter, Brian, Nathaniel noted with a wave, a doctor, a chef, and several others waited their turns, while a police officer described crime scene investigation to wide-eyed first graders. When Nathaniel's turn came, he'd prepared a child-friendly overview of sustainable energy investment. Instead, looking at Isabel's expectant face, he found himself telling a different story. My job title is Chief Executive Officer, he began, but my most important title is Dad. Isabel's smile widened. I help build companies that create things people need. But the most important thing I'm building now is a home and a future, with my daughter afterward. As children swarmed the firefighter helmet and the chef's sampling tray, Isabel approached with her friend Katie. My dad says you're in the newspaper a lot, Katie whispered loudly. Sometimes, Nathaniel acknowledged. I told her your real job is helping me with math homework and making Sunday pancakes, Isabel declared, making both adults laugh that evening as they packed boxes for their upcoming move. Nathaniel noticed Isabel carefully wrapping Rebecca's photographs. Dad, she said suddenly, can I ask you something important? Anything. Did you know about me? Before Mom's letter, Nathaniel set down the books he was sorting and sat beside her on the floor. No, sweetheart. I had no idea. If I had known, you would have found us, she finished confidently. That's what I thought. She returned to her wrapping with methodical precision. Then, without looking up, I knew who you were before I came to your office that day. Nathaniel froze. What do you mean? Isabel carefully placed a wrapped frame into a box. Mom showed me your picture. Lots of times she kept magazines with your interviews. She would point to your picture and say, that's your father. Belle, someday you'll understand. You knew all along. She nodded. When she got really sick, she made me memorize your company name and address. She made me practice what to say. Her small fingers twisted the ribbon on her locket. She said, I needed to be brave and find you after she was gone. Nathaniel's throat tightened as he imagined Rebecca preparing their daughter for this impossible task, training her with the same determination she'd once shown in their university debates. Why didn't you tell me you knew? Isabel looked up with eyes that suddenly seemed much older than 7. Mom said, I needed to give you time to learn how to be a dad. She said, some people need practice to be good at new things. A laugh escaped him, part pain and part wonder at Rebecca's insight. Your mother was very wise. She also said, if you didn't want me, I should go to Aunt Susan in Boston. Isabel's voice remained matter of fact. But I knew you would want me, I just had to wait and see if you knew it too. Nathaniel pulled his daughter close, overwhelmed by her quiet courage, this tiny person who had marched into his office carrying the weight of her mother's final plan, prepared for rejection but hoping for acceptance. I'm sorry you had to be so brave, he whispered against her hair. It wasn't that hard, she replied, her arms around his neck. You look just like your pictures and you have the same serious thinking face I do. Later, after bedtime stories beneath her star-filled ceiling, Nathaniel sat in his home office surrounded by reminders of his former life awards, financial reports, acquisition summaries. Soon these would be packed away, some moving to their new home, others to his reorganized office at Cooper Industries. On his desk sat Isabel's latest art project, a family portrait showing them in their future garden stick figures. With disproportionately large smiles beside it lay the last quarterly report indicating Cooper Industries stock had reached an all-time high following the Sullivan merger announcement. Both represented success, but only one represented happiness. His phone buzzed with a message from his newly appointed COO team aligned for tomorrow's Sullivan signing. Everything proceeding as planned. Priority items flagged for your review. Nathaniel sent a brief acknowledgement, then opened his calendar to confirm he'd blocked time for Isabel's science fair the following week. Returning to the stack of papers needing his review, he worked steadily until midnight, signing the last document with satisfaction. Cooper Industries would continue to thrive under his leadership, but with boundaries that preserved what mattered most. The empire he'd built could adapt to his new priorities, and if it couldn't, he'd learned. He could walk away without regret. In the quiet apartment, Nathaniel checked on his sleeping daughter one final time. The starlight from her ceiling cast gentle patterns across her peaceful face. So like Rebecca's in repose, we're doing okay? He whispered, a message meant for Rebecca and himself. She's teaching me something new every day. Isabel stirred slightly, her hand instinctively touching the heart locket that contained both her parents' images, a gift from the father she'd been prepared to face alone but hadn't needed to. Nathaniel Cooper, once defined solely by the company that bore his name, gently closed his daughter's door, knowing that the life they were building together was his true legacy, more valuable than any empire of steel and glass.